أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على الرسول الكريم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So as Camila said, we're going to tag team it, inshallah, all three of us today. So it might be a little interesting for you, for all of us today. In order to give you the best that we can, give you an understanding, have some kind of exchange of ideas and thoughts and reflection, inshallah, today. So when I was given this topic, it was actually very interesting because I had to laugh a little bit because this is an area that I'm still working through, and many of you also think probably working it through. Recently, I think those of you who have been following my sessions, I've been sharing a lot about what's going on with us and how we're dealing with the challenges. For us, my in-laws just moved in with us. And for a lot of times, people are wondering, well, what's that like? And how are you dealing with that? And this actually was one of the most stressful things that I have been working with, and this is what I say in my personal jihad, because they are wonderful human beings, and I am so thankful to have such amazing in-laws. But that experience in itself has been very stressful for myself as well as my family. And so I'm bringing this because I want us to realize that each one of us has stressful experiences that we deal with on a regular basis at different stages of our life. And part of it is understanding, well, what is it about these stressors, and really thinking about it and understanding what are the underlying issues that are impacting us, so that we can then, once we have an understanding of what's going on, we can start making change. And so I want to share some of that journey with you today. Of what was helpful for myself, what we know from psychology, and then inshallah, we will continue with different panels, individuals speaking. So, as I shared with you, that was one stressful thing for me, but as women in particular, we are often socialized into thinking that we need to put everybody else's needs before our own. Right? And it may be our children, it may be our spouse, it may be our work, it may be our parents, it may be our friends, whoever it is, they always come before ourselves. And this list is never ending, and there's never a break in our life stage, right? And what happens is we have so many sources of stress, one on top of the other, one on top of the other, it adds, and then you get to a point where sometimes you feel like you're breaking. And one of the issues that we keep finding over and over again is we forget about self-care. Even though that's so much part of our tradition. If many of us remember the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, when there were a bunch of companions and they were talking about, well, the Prophet is but the Prophet ﷺ is at this status and we are this, and so we need to be doing more. And so when the Prophet ﷺ heard about this and the fact that they were going to these extremes, you're familiar with the hadith about, about how your family has rights over you, your guest has rights over you, but we forget the part of yourself has rights over you. Right? Yourself has rights over you. And so for you to think about and remember that this is part, and this is extremely important for us to think about it, because if our self is not taken care of, and what does that look like, then all of our other obligations and responsibilities are going to be impacted. And so for us to really think about what are the things that we need to do in this process. First of all, we need to acknowledge our stress. What are the sources of stress, and why are they stressing us out? Identify the triggers. When I think about my situation with my in-laws, the source of stress was my in-laws are moving in. That's going to change the dynamics in our family. That's going to have an impact on my children. That's going to have an impact on my relationship with my husband, which I value so dearly. So all of that sources, my brain was going on and on and on, all these different things that are going to change. But then if I can start understanding what is that source, acknowledge it, and take action, then we can do something with it, right? So identify those triggers. When are you more stressed? Who is present? What are the dynamics of the situation? Can you change the situation? And when you think about can you change the situation, it's really important for us to think creatively. Think outside the box. In some cases you can change, in some cases you can't. And in both cases, you want to reframe our thinking about the issue, right? So for example, sometimes our expectations are unrealistic. Right? In my situation, part of the stress was what I was saying, well, my in-laws are moving in, I have to do this, and I have to do this, I have to be the best daughter-in-law, and all these things that they had never expected of me. But I knew that would make them happy, and so I wanted to do it for them. I mean, they gave me their son, who, mashallah, I'm so blessed to be married to. I want to do more for them. But they never asked me to do half the stuff that I expected to do. So really being realistic and being real, what is your reality? What is your limitation? What can you do? What can you not do? And adjust your standards. Second, many times we engage in negative self-talk. This is when we're talking to ourselves and you're not good enough, you're judging yourself. A lot of it is coming from our negative self-talk that we say to ourselves before anybody else. Right? And so we need to change that negative thinking and start adjusting to what's more realistic. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's al-Khaliq, right? He shaped us, He created us. He created us in the best way, shape, and form. He has given us certain strengths, and we have certain weaknesses. Let's accept them, right? And let's try to work off of that. Next thing that we also need to do is really focus on our zone of influence. We often think we can change people. If I can just change my husband, if I could just change my child, if I could just change this coworker, right? Let's accept that we have influence on ourselves. We can change our situation. And let's focus on what we have control over. The other people we can try to influence, but we can only change ourselves and accept the things that we can't change. That's in terms of our kind of mental approach and thinking about things. Other things that we can do physically is we need to commit to regular exercise. Daily exercise really helps to reduce the stress. One of the things that's been very helpful for me is at our masjid we have floor hockey every week for the women. Right? We close off the windows and we play floor hockey, and it's pretty vicious, actually. You see different personas come out, it's amazing. But what that does is you're getting out the stress, you're getting the exercise, and you're building social support, which is extremely important because what happens oftentimes is we become isolated with our issues and we don't reach out to our brothers and sisters. We don't reach out to those who can help us, right? The Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the believers, men and women, are awliya, right? We are the helpers, supporters, friends to one another. And do we have those connections to develop, to help support us through this process? So it's really important, in addition to the exercise, that we're also connecting with those around you, right? To develop that social support, because when you are down, you need someone to help lift you back up. We also need to connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that needs to be your support to help you go through that process. And I'm going to leave it to Sister Yasmin Mujahid to kind of continue on that conversation. But I want us to think about that self-care, because that is going to help us go and get through the different issues that we're addressing. A couple other things we need to do is we need to express ourselves. Oftentimes we're uncomfortable sharing our thoughts and beliefs and values and asserting our voice, because of social expectations, because of what people are going to say. But then that results in resentment, and that results in anger, and it comes up and pops up in different ways. So it's really important that we be willing to stand up for ourselves, voice ourselves, and find a way of communicating to those around us. We need to laugh more. We just need to be silly. And that's really important because that energy allows us to be able to find our voice again, to release that tension, release that energy. Maybe that's a pillow fight. Maybe that's running around, playing laser tag. Whatever it is, we need to find ourselves again. And if these techniques don't work, and I know Camila's going to be sharing a few more. They're like, where'd she go? Camila's going to be sharing a couple more. If that doesn't work, acknowledge that you may need professional help. And there's no stigma with that. Go ahead and get that help. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us, use all the sources that we have around us to get ourselves and get the help that we need. And if you think about the Islamic tradition I talked about yesterday, about that the stigma that's developed around mental health came during the decline, the intellectual thought decline of the Muslim community. Initially, when we started off, the 6th century to the 13th century, we have all the scholarly work on psychology, on mental health. We had so many different interventions. And then when we closed the doors to ijtihad, that's when things fell apart. And so we need to come back and realize that this is part of our tradition. And if we think about even the dua that the Prophet ﷺ has reminded us, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal hazan, right? What's it talking about? What is it? What are we talking about? We're talking about sadness and despair, anxiety. So Allah is reminding us to seek help from Him. But at the same time, get the professional help. For us to really think and really realize that we do now have Muslim mental health professionals in the major cities. We do have resources, and if you don't want to go to a Muslim professional, that's okay. Go to a non-Muslim professional. Get the help that you need. FYI has the resources to take to your professionals and say, this is how you can be effective with Muslims. These are the issues you need to consider. Use those resources. That's what it's for. But you need to take action. And it's important you take immediate action and take care of yourself, because that's going to develop and build over time. I want to make sure we get time, and Camila is going to continue on some of the areas that I missed. But inshallah, I ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the strength to make the changes that we need to reduce our stress, pain, and hurt. I ask Al-Jabbar, the mender of broken hearts, to help us address the loss that we may be feeling, the guilt, the shame, that anyone in this room and everyone here, if you're struggling with, remember to get the help, make the change. And finally, I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to not burden us with more than that we can burden and can bear, and to give us ease in this world and the akhirah. Jazakallahu khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.